Thank you again for coming to check us out here today at New York Coturnix. Today we're going to be going over some of the items that I use for everyday quail care. I'm setting up the brooder right now, getting ready for the eggs that'll be coming out of the incubator in around 2 weeks, and I thought it would be a good time to just go ahead and show you some of the things that I use to take care of the birds. Let's get started. All right, so one of the first items you're going to have to take into consideration, actually let's just take the first two items into consideration when it comes to taking care of your chicks. To begin with, you're going to want to consider feeding, what you're going to want to use to feed these birds. I try to use no mess feeders. These, well, they're going to make a mess either way. You want to cut down a food mess as much as possible. And when they're chicks, I like to use these feeders right here. These style feeders are pretty good. You can screw a mason jar right on top of them. Gravity fed, feed comes right out. They tend to keep their faces right in there. Usually when they're really tiny, I won't even put the jar on top. I'll just fill it, a little bit more than halfway. That way they can get in there and not make a big mess. So this type of feeder is the one that I use. It has 8 holes in it. 8 birds can eat at one time. And when they're really little, 16 can eat at one time. 17 or 18, because they'll actually hop inside of here and have a go at it. Now the waterer is pretty much the same setup. You'll have your mason jar on top of a distribution system. And this one, even when the quail are, about a week old, they can still run the risk of drowning in here. This one is an extra small one, made especially for tinier birds. But again, they can run the risk of drowning in here. So you'll want to make sure that you put some marbles or something in there. I use Mancala stones, and it works out pretty well. I almost had a couple of chicks that drowned on my first hatch because I didn't do that, but I learned my lesson quick. They made it through. You want to get one of these or something similar that, feeds them water, keeps it somewhat clean, because they're going to poop in it either way. And this is what I use. The links for all of this stuff can be found below. In their water, usually what I'll do is include a little bit of apple cider vinegar. Apple cider vinegar is said to keep up on general health and cut down on the smell of their poop and pee, which they do at the same time. Does it work? I'm not sure. I've been using it the whole time and I have no comparison to go off of. So this is another one of the things that I use. Also, I'll give them the option of water with vitamins in it. This particular vitamin is a multivitamin daily balance by Quail. I got this from Petco and it was about, I don't know, somewhere between $8 and $13. I really can't remember. But this is a multivitamin for your birds. Works great with quail. What else do we have here? Okay, of course, I have a mason jar in general. Again, once the birds get a little bit bigger, when they're in the brooder, once they get past about here, you might want to go ahead and put a mason jar on top of the feeder. That way you won't have to come back and feed them every couple of hours, because they do eat a lot. You put this jar on here with food in it, of course. It'll feed the system and they'll be good. Now, aside from that, when they're chicks, you don't want to give them cold water. And I don't like giving my plants tap water that hasn't been left out. I do the same thing with my birds. They do get tap water, but I prep the tap water first and I leave it out. And again, I usually mix it with apple cider vinegar, or I'll mix it with the multivitamin inside an orange juice container that's been cleaned out, and I'll let it sit. Usually I have about 3 or 4 of these prepped at any given time for the birds. Now, as far as my brooder setup, I have a couple of these. Actually, I have 4 of these lights. They are really good for heating up your brooder. They're also good for plants and terrariums. But this particular one has a cage. Feed it like that. I'm not gonna, set the whole thing up right now, but this one has a protection cage on it. And I have 3 more, like I said, similar to this. You're gonna need a lighting system, you're gonna need a heating system for your brooder, for your quail. That's a given. And this particular watt is a 250 watt bulb. So if you're using a 250 watt bulb, you'll only need one of these. When I use the 100 watt bulbs, I use 2 of those at a time. This, again, 250 watts, you'll only need 1 of them. Aside from that, when it comes to prepping out some of the food and stuff for the birds, I do have this old school herb grinder. Twist the handle right here with your items inside. You could crush up whatever you want to in here. Right now, I have some grit in here, oyster shell actually, that I was crushing up for the birds. And they seem to really like that stuff. Oyster shell is really good for egg production. Oyster shell is another item that I use in everyday bird care. I actually only give it to them about once a week. My birds on the bottom level because they are my egg producers, and that does add calcium to the diet, strengthening the eggshells. Aside from that, I will from time to time use a mortar and pestle. This will help crush up smaller items that are easier to crush that I don't need the herb grinder for. I use this mainly for herbs and stuff like that, but eggshells are really good to crush up in here. Use the eggs, you know, you make an omelet or something, save the shells, let them dry up, crush them up in the mortar and pestle, and feed them back to the birds, a good source of calcium. Now, a bunch of you have asked me from my past videos, where did I get the bird carrier? I actually don't have a bird carrier. What I have here is pretty much a deluxe cat carrier. I don't know if you can see it here. Of course, it has the cage in the front for your feline friends, but it also has the cage on the top, which I guess is what makes it deluxe. Now, I use this for the birds when it comes to culling time or separating time or what have you, and I always go in from the top because it's easier, you know, to grab a bird from the top or put them in from the top. This I actually got at the SPCA when we adopted a cat. This is a couple of years ago. These things you can find, again, pretty much at any pet store. You're going to be looking for something that has a top access to it. That's pretty much all it is, again, is a fancy cat carrier. Now, aside from those items, there are a few other things, of course, that I'm going to use for everyday quail care. With my setup in particular, I'm going to have things here like this ladder behind me. If you can see that. Now that ladder I need because I have to get up to the 2nd level of the quail hutch, and I can get up there, but I can't reach all the way to the back. Also, I can't reach up to the watering system because I'm only 5'9". So I need this ladder that's behind me to reach a couple of inaccessible things. Aside from that, now I don't know if you can see this, it's halfway in the cleanup time. I have a big pile of bird poop behind me, but I have all the shovels. I have the snow shovel and the scraping shovel is what I like to call it. It's what I use to get the poop up off the ground. And then I have a push broom right here. All of these items are also used with my everyday quail care because we got to keep this place clean. And just so you know, I also get my premium pine shavings from Tractor Supply. I get about 5.5 cubic feet of this stuff, and it works wonders, lasts a long time. It's what I use inside of the hutches. It's what I use inside of the brooder after I switch them from the paper towel and shelf liner. All right, and also as an added bonus, I did promise to keep you guys updated on the progress of the quail that I found a couple of mornings ago in my swimming pool after a bunch of birds escaped. And I do have it right here. Seems to be doing pretty good. I was warned about dry drowning. That didn't happen. I'm gonna put her back into the pen before she gets too stressed out. I already had a feather pop off just now, but she seems to be doing really good after that event. I thought I'd just let you guys know, since a few of you were interested and concerned at the same time. The shakes are gone, her feathers are all dry. We were able to determine that she's a female, and hopefully she'll start laying us some eggs soon, right? So there's the update there. I think Snowy's gonna be okay. And we're gonna put her back into the cat carrier. And she goes back into the cat carrier just like that. Thank you once again for coming to check us out here today at New York Coturnix. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave those below. Also, leave a like for the video and subscribe to the channel for more. We're always coming back with more videos. We're looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you again from New York Coturnix.